Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the issue of innovation. Now, it could be innovation at any level. It could be technical, it could be organizational. But there's a lot of talk going around at the moment that in the Western world, at least, innovation has stalled. It's just not happening anymore. There's sort of minor innovations going on with things like design or the look and feel of the new Apple whatever gizmo, but innovation in terms of any quantum leaps or any game-changing type developments is, so it's alleged, has slowed down to a crawl, if not has stopped entirely, and is now just going in circles. Now, that's just put down to the fact that humans are no longer capable, or the Western world is no longer capable of innovation. They may have a point there, actually. The globalists are working hard to emasculate it, or emasculate the inputs to innovation. But just looking at the question more broadly, when I first started business traveling as a young guy, and probably quite a bit younger than really I should have been, well, I think I've mentioned this before, the multinational company I worked for at the time, they wanted someone to go around and sort of find out what was happening in the little enclaves of Silicon Valley, and it was, the job was to do, wear out a lot of shoe leather, pound the pavements, go knocking on doors around that Silicon Valley, San Jose, and all around there, and elsewhere, by the way, in parts of Texas and Massachusetts as well, and find out what was going on. Look for new products, new technologies. Where are these technologies going? What would the new technologies be? And to try and sort of figure out the future. So really, none of the important people, or the glory seekers, or the freeloaders, none of them wanted to go. So it was a job with a lot of a lot of, as they saw it, a lot of hard work and so on. And also the idea of having to knock on someone's door and say, "Hey, what are you guys doing? Tell me about it." They thought a young, innocent, fresh-faced punk kid might get a little bit further with that, which probably was true, actually. But so off I went on the cheapest coach class flight they could find, and in the some of the shittiest hotels that they could book for me. But anyway, so that was my first gig there. But it was very exciting, because this was primarily focused around, well, not exclusively, but around IT and the upper end of the electronics game and so on. And so I did exactly as I was told. And back in the day, there were these little light industrial estates where you could knock on the door. Lots of little small offices, and there'd be a few guys in there, 2 or 3 guys, something like that, in there, and they'd be beavering away trying to invent the next could be a software program, could be a piece of hardware, it could be whatever, a controller card for, like a printed circuit board controller card for various IT peripherals, and the list went on. And some of these guys were, you sort of know you're in the presence of genius. I'm not a genius, but when you're in the presence of someone who either is or is on the cusp of genius, and some of the things they were doing. And I met probably more, really bright people in that space of time than I've ever met before or since, compressed into that short space of time. And I was in awe of some of these guys. Like, wow, these guys were literally inventing the future. And then here I am sitting next to a guy that in a couple of years' time, he's on the front page of the Wall Street Journal or something as having invented the new technology that does this or achieves that or something like that. So, and most of them were young guys. Like you struggle to find many over the age of mid-30s, really, but they were all bright guys. They purely merit based. These were sharp dudes. Now, not all of them were PhDs from MIT or something. There were people who maybe had started as a bum boy in the IT department or the design department or something, and had shown natural aptitude and were able to really grasp the complicated concepts, and they made some sort of contribution with design or cutting code or whatever it might have been. And so there are also some just naturally smart people with natural aptitude there as well. But most of them were the MIT types. And I never went to an Ivy League college and certainly didn't get a PhD. So again, I was just in awe of these guys. Wow, oh shit, And as they would tell me what they were doing, and they're very good. I knock on the door, look, my name's Billy Bob, I'm from Australia, and they would, come in, sit down. And often I was sitting on, as I think I've mentioned before in videos, often they'd get a pile of phone books. This was in the days of landline phones. Mobile phones were really huge things, the size of a briefcase. But they would sit me down there and walk me through what they were doing and how it would fit in and how it would change the world and this sort of thing. Some of them were wishful thinkers, and even I could see that at the time. Others you could tell, like, wow, they're really onto something here. And sometimes we'd go out to the local bar and grill, and we'd sit down and they'd ask about Australia and so on. So it was all very, very congenial and collegiate and so on. So, but I was in the presence of, again, some very, very smart dudes. Silicon Valley actually was pretty, not just the Silicon Valley, even parts of LA and everything, was just thick with like really bright people. Maybe I'd be less appreciative of their brightness now as I'm older and more experienced, but at the time, as I say, I was more than starry-eyed about just how bright these dudes were. Also, even going to a big company, I went to one of the big multinational IT companies, and there was a department there, and they would happily introduce me to these people. They were so open and generous with their time and in talking to me, but they had again, big multinational with big budgets, lots of money to throw around. And this was in the earlier days of computer networking, like personal computers on the desktop replacing the bigger centralized donks of like, the IBM mainframes and that sort of thing. And so these, and you saw this in big companies around, they got a really bright guy, a naturally bright guy, the genius type of guy. And this guy I met, he definitely was in that category. And they said to him, okay, you've got a budget, go and invent the future. What will computing look like, or information? How will information be handled, managed, distributed, and so on? How will it be happening 10, 20 years from now? How will it work? Now, that's a bold thing to even go out a couple of years in technology, but they were giving these guys the brief. And this one guy in particular I'm thinking of, who would have been, he would only have been a few years older than me, twice as bright though. And they gave him this gig, said, okay, you've got to pretty much, give what's, within limits. You've got an unlimited budget, pick the people you want, go and invent the future. That building there is yours, invent the future. And these were, of course, heady times. There was the innovation, the experimentation, we can do it, the sense of purpose, the commitment, the drive, the energy, the buzz. It was an exciting time to be there and to be alongside these giants of technology, I guess you'd call them. And so this guy had gone out to invent the future. I'd come along, after it had started, so I wasn't there at the beginning. So I'd come along and saw it, and it was again impressive and hugely exciting, and just a sense of energy you got even being in the presence of some of these guys. What this guy had got, he'd been able to go and get all his MIT buddies and his buddies from elsewhere, or anyone that he'd worked with or knew that was super bright. And these guys were, you could get that much brain power in the room sort of all at the same time, in itself was insane. But I noticed that, again, even sitting at the table with these guys, I felt certainly humbled. I wasn't as smart as any of them. So anyway, they were going at it, and they had invented the distributed computing systems that we see today. How the internet would work, and how there'd be a PC on every day. How the PCs would then become laptops and mobile and move around. They could plug into docking stations anywhere. Any computer could talk to any other computer, and this and that, and shared resources and so on. So these guys had conceived that say 18 years, close on 20 years before it became a reality. That's how far ahead of their time they were. Nor did this company end up setting the pace on it. They fell on stony times sort of several years later. Well, not stony times so much, but they kind of lost their direction, and they sold off bits and pieces here and there, and part of it was with these developments. So that company that could have, by the way, owned the whole thing and be now masters of the universe technologically, they managed the management sort of after they'd been so far-sighted enough to set this up, lost control of the agenda there. But anyway, coming back to this innovation, the spirit of innovation, of experimentation. Let's try it. We can do it. The can-do attitude, which, by the way, was across the length and breadth of America at that time, also in other parts of the West. Something, by the way, as I did travel around the world, I didn't see anywhere else. The can-do, the attitude of can-do, that was uniquely Western. I just didn't see it anywhere else. Maybe it was there, but exquisitely concealed. But it was only in the West that I saw that, which isn't simply optimism in isolation. It's optimism, sure, but it's also a belief, a confidence in oneself, one's organizational structure, the one's ability, as in your colleagues and your organization, ability to having the confidence to move that extra step or steps forward into inventing things into completely new territory, totally green fields, just going out there and doing it, and having that confidence, that drive, willpower, I guess, as well, to go out and do it. Now, I don't see that anywhere in the West today, or certainly not to anywhere near the extent I did. Bear in mind, I was younger and probably more easily impressed then than I would be now, but nonetheless, I can't deny, looking back, because I can still look back on things and be a little critical of things that I thought a lot of years ago. I was too easily impressed on that. But on this, no, I was impressed then and remain so today on that buzz, that energy, and that sense of can-do and the innovation. The confidence that company had to go to this guy, but they picked the brightest guy they could and told him, now you pick the brightest guys you want to work with to get this done. It was merit. These were the brightest guys. These would have been the brightest guys, not simply in the United States, but the Western world, in their field. And they produced results to do it. So now coming back to the question of innovation, has innovation fallen to pieces or gone, stopped, been reduced to a crawl in the West today? Look, I don't actually dispute that generally. I don't think it's quite as bad as some of the doomsday suggest, but I wouldn't dispute the general idea. So let's suppose that it's slowed to a crawl or nearly stopped. Let's accept that for the moment. How did it happen? How did we get here? Well, there's a few reasons for it as I see it. I don't believe the capacity for human innovation has ended. I think that's absolute nonsense. I dismiss it out of hand. What I think has happened is, when I looked at every single innovator, any research and development, any group of innovators who were inventing the future, all through the doors that I knocked on, the little startup companies that I spoke to a shitload of them. They were all straight white males. All of them. Now, there was not a non-white person or a female anywhere other than maybe on a reception or something like that. So that was it, and it was all merit. These were the brightest of the brightest. These were some fucking sharp dudes, and that was, they were delivering that level of innovation and that level of invention and development. Now, that isn't happening today. Every innovation group that I saw alleged now they were innovators then, now it's alleged innovators today. I see you know, an insane effort to ensure that straight white males are the minority. So there's, you know, women, black lesbians, but the thing is that hardly any of the people in these jobs that are there for merit, they're there for ideological reasons. Well, you've got to have more black lesbians. We can't have all these evil straight white guys, Nazis, fascists, Hitler, white supremacy. So everyone's so caught up in this bullshit self-destructive ideology, and let's call it what it is seriously self-destructive, that these innovators, these groups of inventors, any R&D group that I see now, I see quite a few of them still. I don't see straight white males. You know, there's one of Australia's largest universities recently is hiring R&D, research scientists for like rocket science type stuff, and they've insisted that a majority of the people must be female, and then a majority overall must be non-white. And there must be representation of trans and gay and lesbian, this sort of thing. So you'd be lucky if a quarter of the people, the men or the staff complement overall, be lucky if a quarter of them were straight white males. And of course, the head researcher must be female, must be lesbian. The deputy must be black and female, and this sort of thing. So I don't know how far they're going to go in that, but that's the standard. So the standard of people that are in the innovation sector, the inventor, has dropped. I mean, it hasn't just dropped; it's fallen off the edge of the cliff. I mean, it's still it's a black abyss, and it's just going down non-stop, disappearing into the abyss. And that's the standard. So I think that's why innovation has stalled, and that's why we're not seeing the inventions and the quantum leaps that we've seen, that we did see from the post-war years up until the early mid-1990s. And then, from that point onwards, since the globalists took control, it's gone downhill. So I would argue the globalists' attempt to reshape Western society into the mass migration of black, brown peasants, making sure as many straight white males can be culled out of business and governments and everything as they can get rid of. There are now so many organisations where straight white males are there to be removed. Affirmative actions, gender, race quotas, straight white males have to be got rid of. But this is part of the globalist shtick, to remove any opposition to the globalist project. So I think as a natural extension of what the globalists are doing, undermining the entire fabric of our society and very much undermining any sense or concept of merit, I think that's where innovation has gone, and why there's that sense that innovation has been lost has occurred. You've been with Tasteless today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.